I chaired one of the early hustings he spoke at. It was for the GMB, actually. And afterwards, a lot of people were saying, I like what he was saying, but I don't think he can win it. Well, he proved them utterly, utterly wrong. Jezzy can, Jezzy did. I'll just introduce him by his name, Jeremy Corbyn. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Mr. Maguire wishes us to sit down. Is that right, Mr. Maguire? Including the members of the NUJ at the front. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here tonight, and what a wonderful venue for this rally. What a wonderful outside rally we've got out there. There's thousands of people out there on the street, and I want to say thank you to Rogers Govinder, the Dean of the Cathedral, for allowing us to use this place tonight for this wonderful rally. Thank you to him, and thank you to the church. It seems a long time ago, way back on a hot summer's day in London, I joined in a Communication Workers Union demonstration about the need to protect Royal Mail and our postal services. And Dave said to me, will you come and speak at our event in Manchester in October? And I said yes, and he said, whatever the result of the election for leader of the Labour Party, I said yes, whatever the result of the election for leader of the Labour Party, I will be there in Manchester to support the postal workers, defend Royal Mail and defend the trade unions. I also want to say a big personal thank you to the Communication Workers Union, not just for nominating me to be a leader of the party, but for the huge personal friendship and support that's been given throughout this campaign, because our campaign had a number of principles surrounding it. The first one was the way that we do our politics in our society. I have been in the receiving end, I understand, of quite a lot of unpleasant remarks in some of our newspapers, people tell me. And I don't care, particularly. I'm not bothered. Because I'm not replying to any of them. I don't make any of those remarks. I'll tell you what, once you get out of the swamp of personal abuse and personal recriminations and tit for tat and all that and clever remarks, eventually people have to listen to the political arguments you're saying and listen to the reality of what life is like in Britain. And so the basis of the campaign on which I was elected was that we were opposed to the political choice of austerity in our society. Because that austerity budgets we've had for the past 5 years and the one we've just had, what are they really about? Making Britain a more and more unequal society, forcing more and more people into desperate poverty, the Welfare Reform Bill making it even worse for the hardest up in our society, the cuts in tax credits making life impossible for many people even to properly survive within our society. That is not an economic necessity, that is a political choice. When they hand tax relief out to those that are leaving large estates to their relatives or large value properties to their relatives, that is a political choice. When they cut the support available for children in larger families, that is a choice. In life, we make choices. Do we care for all, or do we care for the few? Do we look after the hardest up, or do we look after the wealthiest? That is a political choice. I know what choice we have made in our unions, in our movement, in our party. We want to live in a society that actually does genuinely ensure that nobody is living in desperate poverty, and we do not pass by on the other side while others are suffering. That is the kind of world I want to live in. And our shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, John McDonnell, laid all this out in an absolutely brilliant speech to the Labour Party conference just a week ago today. He pointed out that we're going to collect the uncollected taxes from big business. We're going to invest that money. We're going to invest in a growing economy, invest in the hopes and futures of young people, invest in the housing needs that we need in a society. That surely is the right way to go forward. But we also have a very important duty, and that is to protect the very valuable public services we've got. We've seen the level of cuts that are going on in local government expenditure, inspired by central government cuts towards them, and we've seen the attack that is now being made on the postal service, on Royal Mail within this country. Now, I say this, I absolutely value the idea, the notion, the law, the requirement that Royal Mail must be and has to be able to deliver an item of post to every address in the whole of Britain for 6 days a week, and it's called the Universal Service Obligation. Do you know why they want to take that Universal Service Obligation away? So that they can cut off whole areas from regular postal deliveries, dice up the whole service for privatisation, selling off, and use the politics of bargain basement economics to bring in other companies, paying people less, to work harder for longer, and thus destroying all of the work done by the Union of Postal Workers and now the Communication Workers Union over many, many decades. Well, I tell you this, we're not having it. We're not going to allow those conditions to be destroyed. We're not going to allow Royal Mail to be destroyed, because Royal Mail isn't just a company delivering. There's something rather special about it. It's the oldest universal public service organisation in Britain. It was a brilliant invention, brilliantly organised, and there's huge levels of cutting-edge technology involved in it. But instead, it's been taken over by a government that really doesn't understand many of these things and doesn't understand the enormous commitment made by postal workers all over the country to keep that service going, keep the letters and parcels and packages being delivered, doesn't understand that everyone that works in Royal Mail, whatever their job, has a mind, has intelligence, has ideas, and has ideas about how you can develop and improve those services. The kind of public ownership I want in our society isn't just a replica of the way the private sector does things. It's opening up the intelligence, the ability, the imagination of everyone that works in those services to improve them and develop them. And so the first thing is to defend the universal service obligation, and that we'll be doing our best to do that in Parliament. The other thing is the question of the ownership itself. We've been through this argument for a long time about various attempts to privatise Royal Mail. I have to say, at every possible opportunity, I've always been opposed to any degree of privatisation of Royal Mail. It's a natural public service available for all of us, and that is how it must stay. And when Vince Cable announced that he had reached a reasonable option on a share price to sell Royal Mail off of £4.50, within 24 hours, that price had gone up to £6. Now, even I know that £6 take off £4.50 is £1.50. That's a hell of a big return in 24 hours for only investing £4.50. It's a massive return, a massive rip-off at the expense of the entire public. And I think he should be condemned for that. Those that have made so much money out of it should be condemned for that. But the reality is, of course, it wasn't theirs to sell in the first place. And then when he claimed there were all these brilliant investment organisations and hedge funds and goodness knows what else who were ready to invest for the long haul in Royal Mail, and this was what was going to bring investment in and give us a service ready for the rest of the 21st century. You've heard all this stuff, nice prospectuses they printed as well. 80% of them had disappeared within 72 hours, collected their fees and gone. We have all been ripped off. Workers' conditions have been threatened. The public service obligation or universal service obligation for the whole of the country has been threatened. All for what? Some ludicrous theory that the only way you can run public services is to privatise them and sell them off at a profit. No, it's not. Surely a public service is exactly that. And it's that kind of philosophy that is so damaging to so much else about public service. So today we defend the universal service obligation. Today we demand the government does not sell off the remaining 15% share. Today we start these serious discussions about how we ensure the public regain their control over Royal Mail and it is not undermined and destroyed by either waves of undermining it through bits of privatisation, dicing up the service and selling it off, or simply not being prepared to ensure there's proper investment in it. I want a Royal Mail that is universal. I want a Royal Mail that's a good employer. I want a Royal Mail that is using all the skills of every worker that's involved in it as a model for the way in which we can run public service in this country. And I tell you this, in this campaign, look at everyone here tonight. Look at all the thousands outside. Look at all the thousands that have signed petitions. When we mount a campaign like this, it opens the minds and ideas and imagination of so many people to ways you can do things differently. We challenge austerity for what it is. We challenge the selling off of public services for what they are. We challenge the privatisation of our National Health Service for what it is. Is a public service there to provide a service for all of us, or is it there merely as a profit opportunity for financial investors? No, we borrow money where we need to invest in improving things. We pay that back when we've improved those services. But above all, we say there's something very fundamental and a very fundamental principle about how we run and manage our public services themselves. And so things have changed politically in this country quite dramatically. I have been elected leader of the Labour Party. It's a huge responsibility, and I'm very proud of that position. And I'm very grateful for all the support that's been received. And in all the public meetings and the rallies we had all over the summer, there was this wonderful combination of people, all ages, all ethnic communities, all faiths, coming together. Young people coming into that kind of political activity for the first time, older people coming back. I tell you this about the younger people coming in. They've been written off as a non-political generation. No. They're not a non-political generation. They were a generation that the political classes had written off and ignored rather than use their skills and use their imagination. But I tell you this, when you do a campaign together, when you get together to discuss, on this occasion, how we defend our postal services and how we defend and support the workers in the postal services, something else happens. A social dynamic comes along. An intelligent discussion takes place. And we all start looking at ourselves, at our world, at our society, about how we can do things differently. Is it really right or necessary that the richest few families own as much as the combined wealth of the fifth of the rest of the population? Is it right that there are still people, indeed more people, sleeping rough in Britain? Is it right that children are having their benefits cut because of the cut in family tax credits? Is it right that we're deliberately increasing the levels of poverty and inequality in our society? Are these necessary economic choices, or are they political choices from people that want to create a society or recreate something that looks more like the 1930s or possibly even the 1830s? Let's be confident about what our movement is about, what our unions are about, what our party is about. Creating a society that values everyone, a society that recognises everyone has brains, intelligence, imagination, and a contribution to make. So as we go through the policy developments of how we're going to run our public services, how we run our economy, what kind of health service we want, what kind of environment policy we want, and all the rest of it, we're not going to do it in isolation. We're not going to do it with exclusive groups of experts sitting in distant places doing it. We're going to do it together. We're going to do it working together. We're going to do it as union members, party members, and the public working together. So this campaign is about defending our postal service. This campaign is about the kind of public services we want. This is a campaign that's excited thousands and thousands of people. Look at the numbers here tonight, look at the numbers outside, look at the numbers of people in Britain who are challenging what's going on, do want to live in a different society. I want there to be a different government in 2020, and I know full well that's some years away. I also know, and I'm sure all of you know, that an election victory in 2020 will not be won in the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to May 2020. That election victory will be won by changing ideas, by opening minds, opening eyes, opening hearts, bringing people together to develop the kind of campaign and kind of policies and kind of society that we all want to live in, where young people have real hope and real opportunity, not consigned to decades of debt because they've had the temerity to go to university, where young people are given decent jobs, decent opportunities and decent training, where 1 million people are not working on 0 hours contracts and all the things that go with it. When we do things together, in our party, in the unions, in the public and the communities, we are very, very strong. We're very strong, we're imaginative, and we move forward in a good way to create that better world. The campaign is on postal workers, the campaign is on defending a service, the campaign is on the imagination of the way we do things in the future. But above all, it's a campaign to cast away the straitjacket of the idea you can only think within the politics of austerity and the inequality and misery that leads to. It's a campaign to liberate the minds of people as to what can, and I say this to you, will be achieved by all of us working together. Thank you very much.